There are a lot of black men, and I know a few that go to the doctor, and their reason for going was because they didn't want to get nagged by their significant other. Got their name on the bottom. You know, it says Nelly, special co-host. Speak now, hold your peace. Same thing for David. They come on the show. They my number one hitter. Every time there's a shooting, people are saying, you know, we need more gun control.
Welcome to Speak Now, Hold Your Peace, a live broadcast with real conversations about community social issues, politics, business, health, self-care, and more. We broadcast live on the Speak Now, Hold Your Peace Facebook group and the Speak Now, Hold Your Peace YouTube channel. And now, here's your host, Say What I Feel, Dre.
Welcome to Speak Now, Hold Your Peace. I'm Say What I Feel, Dre. And today we have two special guests. We're going to talk about if schools should be segregated. And this came up a couple of times due to the Roe versus Wade being overturned. So, you know how we do. You know, we start thinking about the other stuff. Okay, if you could do this, then you could do that. So we start, talking about if they're going to segregate schools. So with that said, I figure I'd do a show on this, and why not have two people to help me out with this? And I'm gonna introduce you to him now. My first guest, he does the Scenario Radio Show. His name is Van Everett. Van, what's going on, my brother?
Hey man, I'm doing good. It's good to be on the show, man. I'm glad to see I've made it to the big time.
I
get on
man,
here
we ain't
talk with you, man.
Man, we ain't big time till we all make it, brother. Oh man, good to have you on here, Marcus. My man Marcus, he's from the Rebuke podcast, and I'm sure y'all seen him because he's all over the place, man. Marcus, what's going on, my brother?
Hey, well, I'm doing good, brother, man. I gotta step my game up. Your intro's out of sight.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. But you know, Marcus, now I'm gonna have a whole bunch of sponsors calling me because now that y'all on the show, because y'all some big time names. You carry big time and all that. So now
is that what we about to do? Now we about to do one of those. No, I'm not. It's you. I'm trying to get like you Playboy contest. Is that what we doing now?
Man, I'm glad to have y'all, man. I'm glad to have y'all. So let's get into it, man. Now the question was, should schools be segregated? I'm gonna start with you, Van. What do you think? And then I'm gonna get to Marcus. What do you think? Should schools be segregated?
I've been hearing that discussion a lot, especially since everything that happened with Roe v. Wade, and it's obvious that with a conservative court like this, that there are a lot of other things that they're obviously going to attempt to revisit. Um, and the thing is that I don't know if that is the question we need to be asking in the first place. If it's whether or not schools should be or segregated or not, it's whether or not can we find a way to make sure that they don't commodify whatever they do against us, because whatever they do they're going to do it against us. If they were to segregate schools, they would commodify it against us. Schools are integrated, they commodify that against us. They use, I mean, now keep in mind, schools aren't actually integrated. It's just legally they're integrated, but it's still the same. Well, the way that schools were segregated in the past is pretty much the same as it always has been. They found a way to make sure that black children were still put in certain schools and white children were put in other schools, and that the resources were not the same in those two schools. So I think I don't know if the question for me is so much about whether they should or shouldn't be segregated as much as, well, can we figure out how to get out of them commodifying whatever it is they're doing against us?
Right, right. Marcus?
Man, I'm kind of on the fence with this, but because I grew up a military brat, so um, I, I've seen blacks with Koreans, black with whites, black with whatever. So I grew up in that culture. I didn't really face true racism until I moved back to Alabama in 1995. Then I realized, I mean, I always knew I was a black man, but damn, Alabama reminded me, yeah, you a black man. And with these chains of events and stuff like that, and what Van said, you know what I'm saying, when you got that board versus Brown versus Board of Education in 1954 overturning segregation in schools, especially to offset the Jim Crow laws in the South and stuff like that. But Van said they already found other mechanisms to keep them schools segregated, and the things that our kids are going through. For example, there's been several stories over the years. Kids couldn't graduate because they had locks or they had an afro. They couldn't get a job because of their hair. You know what I'm saying? Again, not only that, hell, in Texas right now, they got a bill right now they're trying to pass to say that the slaves voluntarily came on boats
Hmm.
to the United States. There's a bill about to be passed on that. So I'm with Van because I grew up in a multicultural area, but I think Malcolm X might be right. We might have to go back and segregate this thing so we can teach our kids our culture, our history, so we won't lose that. Because in integrated schools, and you see this what's it, critical race theory, they're not trying to make trying to make sure they look good in front of everybody.
Right,
They don't want their kids to realize that their great grandmother used to hang bros from trees.
right,
So how do we teach our kids these things? Ensure that and teachers are dropping out, failing, and quitting left and right. So we might as well have our own schools and teach and make sure, yeah, teach the basic curriculum, but make sure we don't lose our history, man. So that's why I'm at it to this point, man. We need our schools, man, not because we hate the other races. That's not the case. We need to learn how to love ourselves, teach our culture so it won't be forgotten. So the past mistakes won't be repeated again.
right, right. And it's funny because you know, I can remember as a kid, man, I would kept borrowing somebody's bike. You know, I don't know where I was going. I might have been going to a store, so I just kept borrowing the kid's bike. Let me borrow your bike. And every time it was a big headache, I got to hear him run his mouth. I ain't gonna say the kid's name because I grew up with him. I love you, bro, but I kept borrowing his bike, and he's just like, "Oh, why you going just blah blah blah? Get your own bike." And then I realized that, yeah, maybe I should get my own, because that way I ain't got to depend on somebody else to get me where I'm going. For me, with the education thing, I kind of agree. You know, I'm looking at it from both ways. Now, with that said, being that stop borrowing the bike and get your own, so you have your own. I kind of think that same way for schools. Like, they have their own history that they want to teach, and they want to have people learn and all of that. And I think we should have our own. And it's funny that you say that, because my next question was, do you think that we're better off on our own? Now, some people say like, well, we shouldn't be segregated, because what happens when they graduate and they got to work with other races other than their own? So, but let me ask y'all this: do you think we're better off on our own?
I think the broad and I think there's a broad answer to that, and then there's probably a more detailed answer. Um, we're better off making sure that we are the ones who are looking out for our best interests, that are looking out for the best interests of our children, even if that means being in schools that are primarily black. Yeah, it's again, it's, for me, it's not so much that I don't agree with the idea that black people should have black schools, but I'm thinking about what that means, the systemic implications of it. So even when we want to get our own, you got to remember, we are paying tax dollars into this system right now.
Mm,
So
mm,
how does it work? How does that tax? How do we get those tax dollars to come back to us in our schools in a way that we know we're still not getting cheated? You know what
Right.
I'm saying? So it's like you build the school. I mean, now don't get me wrong. I had did a show a few months ago called The Miseducation, and we talked to people about different educational opportunities that you could have for your black child, for everything from homeschooling to different types of privately owned schools, and there are a variety of types across the country of black owned schools that take different types of methodologies, everything from Montessori techniques and all of that. So and they're working, and it's doing great things for children, but if you're going that route, do you know how many of us can't pay for it? So how do we make sure
mm,
that that happens? How do we make sure that that people are able to pay for it? Is so even in this. So I guess what I'm saying is, even in the idea of us getting our own, we have to consider what we are attempting to do systemically. We know we want to teach our kids our history. We know we want to prepare our kids for success in the world. And I'm not too worried about the idea of them navigating whiteness once they get to the job, because you still, no matter where you at, if you black and you're in America, you're gonna have to learn to navigate whiteness regardless of when you get to a job. You have to learn to navigate that just every day. But what are the system, I mean, the question is, what do we do systemically? If you decide wholesale as a matter of law to say these people can decide to have their own schools to themselves, how do you make sure that the money that you're already paying out in taxes gets to those children? Because you got to remember, they're going to figure out a way, they want to figure out a way to make sure that, yeah, they keep you separate, and they also keep your money.
Hmm.
We pay taxes now, and they make sure that our neighborhoods don't, that the roads aren't what they're supposed to be. You see what I'm saying? That the transportation isn't what it's supposed to be. So the question is, how do you make sure that you're able to get everything that you're supposed to get? That was the reason that segregation was the issue in the first place. People think it was about drinking out of water fountains and wanting to be close to whiteness. It was never about proximity to being white, with white people. It was about the conditions that we are given with our own tax dollars are not equal to the other people who are paying the same tax dollars.
Right. Right. And it's crazy, because I know a teacher. I used to teach too. I know a teacher who you know they didn't mind teaching their own people, but they prefer to teach at white schools. And I'm like, what about the culture and all that? And they're like, well, I don't have the resources when I teach in these urban neighborhoods. And it's just like, okay, so for some teachers, it's about the resources, which I can't, for me, I think it's kind of messed up. And then it's the money issue. Let's just say, exactly, Marcus. Go ahead, Marcus.
I mean, I can speak on that. My dad taught at a high school for 20 years. And the main reason that you have less than 4% of black male teachers in the U.S. system is because of money. Um, uh, to piggyback on what Van said, um, Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896 basically stated that we could have separate but equal. But based on what Van has summarized here, it's impossible to be separate but equal. We tried that. We tried that. Our kids back in during the Reconstruction and Jim Crow era had the sorriest books, had the sorriest schools, had the sorriest all resources, all of that. On top of what Van said, they still reaping our benefits of our money and our tax, well, us paying taxes to them. So that's
Mhm.
why integration came into play, so we can get access to those that education, top tier education in schools and resources, so we can excel in that. So I can't be hypocritical and say that integration didn't work well for me, because integration helped me make six figures. I'm
Right.
currently making six figures because of integration. So I can't be a hypocrite in that aspect. But uh, but the thing is, and like what Van said, if we want to go this route, which I believe we should, are we willing to put all our coins together and develop our own schools? I
Yeah,
mean, LeBron has done it, but how many LeBrons gonna willing to do that?
Right. Right.
yeah,
And
and
and I
I think that. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
look. Oh no, go ahead. You got it. You got it.
No, I was just gonna say. So I think that I don't, because I'm a person that doesn't think the idea of us having our own is bad. I also don't think the idea of us staying in this system is necessarily bad. The question is, how do we make either of those work for us? And
Right.
I think so far we haven't wrestled. We haven't even wrestled with the fight to make it work for us now. And I'm telling you, it's like we're getting dug into a deeper and deeper hole. It's even the political the tools that we would be able to use to make it work for us, to make sure that our children are getting what they're supposed to get, are getting slowly stripped away from us. Voting rights,
Mm-hmm.
all of those things like we're talking about. This conversation all started from what you were mentioning, Dre, about the whole thing with the Supreme Court. They're already stripping those rights away. And the reason they're stripping those voting rights away is so that when they do the things that they do, that you don't have a political recourse
Mm-hmm.
to defend yourself against it. So yeah, I didn't come on to be, I guess, to be a doomsayer or anything, but
No,
the question
no.
is how do we wrestle? How do we get to, if we stay in the system, what do we do?
Right.
Or if we go out, what do we do about either one of those? What are some of the methods that have to be put into play?
Right. And I think a lot of that starts with, and not to say that's a guarantee thing, but a lot of that starts with your local voting, your politicians and stuff like that. Because I get it. It doesn't matter who you vote for. They all lie. They all lie. They all say they're going to do this and do that. Some of them try to do it and can't do it. Some of them can do it and won't do it. I think it's just all about starting local first. And I think
Mhm.
even going deeper than that, I think it's more than just starting local with your politicians. It starts with your community, because
Mm.
as far as the funding, like, let's just say we do have segregated schools, right? How are we going to keep the black teachers there? Because here's the thing, like, some of them is just, like Marcus says, it's the money, they got to take care of this, take care of their families. And that's what they might be thinking, but it could be the money, Marcus.
Man, I interviewed two guys that try to start their own school program, and they doing well, but they're struggling. And not because of teachers, they don't have the money, man. To run a school, it takes a lot of money, man. It takes a lot of money.
Yeah.
So that's the problem we're gonna face if we want. I believe we should, but that's the problem. Do you have the money to uphold a building or the strategic game plan? Maybe you don't have the money. Maybe you can do it virtual. You know what I'm saying? We can have a virtual school that teaches do all the things. But do you have the resources, man? And do you have the emotional and emotional backing of the people to go this route? Everybody screams, HBCU and all that, go that route. But what it got started before then. What about elementary and middle school and high school?
Right.
you know, you know, don't scream. Don't have your kids go to a integrated middle school, high school, and then tell them, hey, we need you to go power to the people. Let's go to Jackson State, you know what I'm saying, or Howard or
Right.
FAMU.
Right. Yeah, man. Like, it does take a lot of money. It's just like, we don't have a whole bunch of LeBrons in the community, but my thought is, and this might be crazy, man, but if we buy black, we get these local black businesses to put in and go in. And if everybody's all in, I think it could be done. it's just a matter of, will everybody be all in? Will we stick to buying black? I mean,
Mm.
are we gonna go where the discount is as opposed to paying a little bit more for our brothers and sisters who got stores on the small stores and stuff like that? So that's the question that I ask. Like, how do we get them to do all of that?
I think some of the concern about the black dollar and education comes into play if we were to put a little more pressure on the places where we already spend our money. So, for instance, if Coca-Cola is already giving out college scholarships, why can't we get Coca-Cola to be more invested into some of the black-owned schools that already exist? Scholarships to those schools. There are schools, like I said, across the country that if we could start getting kids in those, and that becomes something more commonplace that people see, then more people may say, you know what, we need to make sure that happens more often. Let's get some of this Procter and Gamble money. Let's see what Nike has to offer us, because we know Nike loves us when it comes
Absolutely,
to shoes and us buying their shoes. They're
absolutely.
in the community already, so it's like they have something now. So again, obviously that brings to bear, do we have the political will for that? Because it's one thing for you to say, yeah, we need to get Nike on our side, because Nike, they get money from us. It's nothing when you start telling black people, okay, well, you need to let Nike know you've got a quarter, this next quarter, to act.
Hmm.
We make it a public. It has to be a constant public refrain. And once we see you act over this next quarter to say put some money toward, for instance, like Pineywood, which is a black-owned school in Mississippi that's been around since the early 1900s.
Hmm.
Um, if they put some money there and scholarships for kids to go there just in the Mississippi area, then we say, okay, then we still with you the next quarter. When those new Jordans come out, we buying. But if they don't, we're not buying.
Right.
We're not even watching the playoffs this year in the NBA. It needs to be something like that. Things like that would steer things I think, in the direction that we want to go. And the thing is, once the money starts flowing in that direction, yeah, you get politicians who will be like, oh yeah, I'm pro. Every politician loves coming out in favor of education, as if people will come out against education. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can get somebody who's willing to stand behind it then, because then they see the capital moving that way.
Right. Right.
I I have a cousin that she was raised in Alabama. She moved to Detroit, part of that great migration. You know what I'm saying? And she heavily believes in separate but equal.
Mhm.
She was like, I believe in it. She's but and I kind of agree. There's nothing wrong with in some aspects separate but equal. The problem is, and we touched on it again, is the government gonna make sure everybody is equal, and that's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially with that funding, man. It's funny because I did a show maybe a couple of weeks ago on African Americans moving to Ghana. You know, be- and I even put out some questions on some of the Facebook groups. Would you move to Ghana? And the reason why. And a lot of the reasons was that I don't want to feel like a minority. I want to feel like I'm special. And a lot of them said that in different words, but a lot of them said, they want to feel special, and here they don't. So with that being said, I think with the schools, I'm trying to explain it in a way that kind of, I think with the schools, I've heard a lot of parents say their kids they feel like their kids are just a number. They don't feel special. They don't care about the kids if they learn it or not. A lot of teachers don't care. So I think if we had our own, I think there'll be a little bit more caring in there, a little bit more concern about how we do, and they'll be more
I
vested. You know what I mean?
I I went to a PWI and I went to HBCU. I went to the PWI to get my bachelor's degree, and I went to HBCU to get my master's degree. I tell you, the HBCU treated me like family, and I was just there for 2 years. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Better than the PWI, and I got a scholarship from the PWI. What happens to be a minority scholarship because it wasn't enough African Americans there. So So I get what you're saying, and that's what the problem that with our school systems. Do our black kids feel special at a PWI high school, or are they just a number because they can do a 360 dunk, or they can run the 40 in a 4.29?
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And
Yep.
you gotta understand. You gotta understand this. I watched a documentary on Netflix. I forgot the guy's name, man. It was a good about racism in America. And on May 8th, 1967, Martin Luther King. I don't know where he was at. I believe he was in the church. He basically admitted that integration was a bad idea.
Hmm.
He said it
Wow.
made it worse. Before he got assassinated in 1968, he said, "Man, I thought it was a good." Basic paraphrase. I thought it was a good idea, but hell, I think I made a mistake.
Right.
You see,
Right.
I
Because
fear that we may have
we
integrated ourselves into a burning house.
Hmm.
right,
Hmm. Wow. Explain that.
man.
I think what he was saying was, and this it's kind of interesting because it speaks to, I think, one of the things we're talking about when we're talking about the idea of our children feeling special, is that we were attempting to integrate into a situation to make sure we had access to the same things that everyone else had access to. But the issue is that in the midst of that, we also were attempting to assimilate into the same values. And those values don't serve us. And the problem, and part of the issue, the reason we're wrestling right now with this idea of, well, can we do this? Can we get the money to do that? Can we get the votes to do that? Is because we know on some level that it's the values. As long as we keep applying capitalist white supremacist values.
Oh, come on now. He preaching
to black education and to black empowerment and to black children, we are not going to get the results that we desire. But the thing is that everybody's afraid of losing what they have because we're taught to think as individuals. That's what this value system tells us. So the truth is, could we start more black run schools with kids and stuff? Yeah, we could. But the level of sacrifice that requires, it means that you automatically can no longer see yourself solely as an individual. It changes the clothes that your child is going to wear to school.
Wow.
It changes the way that the people are going to be looking after your children for after school care. Who's going to be doing that? And the money that they're going to be getting paid. It changes the wages that those teachers are going to get. It changes the amount of money that those parents have to spend recreationally and everything else. There's a sacrifice wholesale across the board that has to happen for any of this to actually work. And that sacrifice isn't just something you do. You have to mentally and emotionally invest in the idea. And that mental investment tells you that you can't strive to be what they are.
Wow.
And that's a tough thing to do.
Come on, man. Give a benediction already, dog. A benediction, bro. Where the church organ at, baby? Come on, man.
Man, I'm about to put
Come on, man. From Tennessee to New Jersey, Hampton, VA, man. Come on, man.
Wow, man. I don't usually edit my podcast. I'm gonna have to edit that and just play it 3 or 4 times, man.
Hey, that's a trailer right there. Just play this part, man.
You're right. That's right. You know, that's how
my microphone now, man.
That's how we going to do it too, man. That's how we got to do it, man. Whoa. Man. Let me ask y'all this, man. This is like kind of related. You know, Deion Sanders. He coaches at HBCU. What do you think that's going to turn into, or do you think it's going to change anything? Because here's my thing. I think if all African American athletes, the good ones, like the high ranking good African American athletes, go to HBCUs, does that change the game a lot? Does it change it a little? Does it change the game like 75%, 90%?
I've been saying this. Hey, I've been saying this for years, man. The reason people been complaining about there ain't enough black head coaches and blah 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 blah, right? In college athletics. The problem is what Van was talking about is, are we willing to sacrifice? And that's what Deion has displayed. Deion didn't go to Jackson State.
Right.
Deion raised FSU from the ashes and put them on the map. You get what I'm saying? He's
Right.
sacrificing millions of dollars to try to improve a program and try to change a mindset of black people that, hey, you don't have to go to University of Alabama or Clemson or Ohio State or USC to make it to the league. You can go to an HBCU and do the same thing. I got the resources. So I've been saying this for years. Can you imagine Ray Lewis coaching at FAMU,
Mm.
Barry Sanders at Hampton, Terrell Owens at Mississippi Valley State? These are Hall of Famers.
Right. Right.
Can you imagine those Hall of Famers bringing their resources and teaching these kids, hey, yo, you can make it here? You know
Right.
how many people the culture would change? The
Right.
culture is slowly changing what Dion's doing. But just imagine if they're willing to, like we said, like Van said, if we're gonna change this, if we're gonna have all black schools, we have to change the mindset. Your mindset has to change. You gotta basically be a Black Panther. They gave up, they gave they all. They didn't have no money, but they
Right.
started a WIC program after a free lunch program.
Mm-hmm.
So are you willing to sacrifice it? And a lot of these pro athletes, when they retire, they said they ain't got the guts, man, or the drive to do that.
And
Besides Dion.
check this out. Just imagine, because I'm gonna go all out on a limb and I'm a dream, because I'm gonna put it out there. I know this is a dream for
man.
me.
Yeah, go wild.
Can you imagine like you said, Ray Lewis coaching this historically black college? All these famous black African American athletes coaching these different HBCUs. I see more airtime. I see more sponsorships to those HBCUs. And I'm gonna go even further. And somebody be like, "Okay, man, you dream it ain't gonna get like that," and maybe it won't. But you know what? If it got to the point where you take the LeBrons and the Jay-Z's and you start your own football league, that would take a lot of money. But can you imagine? NFL would be done. I'm sure they would try to stop that, go all out and try to stop that in every way. But can you imagine we had our own league? Not to say that white people couldn't play in it, but our own league. Like,
I was like, I answered. Somebody made that post. A woman made this post about our own league and having our own. And I don't know what were the correspondence, but she was like, yeah, we can have our own. We got Africa. If all those billionaires went to Africa and started their own football league and brought all these athletes there, the NFL dies.
Absolutely.
Like you said, going back to Ghana.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Here's
man.
the thing I want us to consider, though. I don't want to throw cold water on this at all, but I do want us to consider, because I always think about this. This is similar to a conversation actually Marcus and I have had before on my show several months back about this type of thing. When we talk about these things, we always talk about them in terms of either the billionaires, the celebrities, or the politicians who, if they started to do the thing we wanted them to do, then that would be the beginning of the change that we want. And the thing is, all of those people are products of the culture of people who are not billionaires, who are not celebrities, who are not politicians. They're all part of the same culture. You can't to ask a kid in his senior year to value what it means to go to an HBCU when he's already done 13 years of school, when nobody ever instilled those values into him before then, is a setup. It's a setup for failure. Even if you get him to go, he doesn't see why he needs to be there. Not when there's somebody else offering him something better. And so for instance, I think about when we look at having, LeBron or somebody else who put the money up. It's great for them to put the money up, but we still have to do the work. We still have to make like we can. The most colleges and a lot of their programs are sustained by boosters. I mean, and even if you haven't gone to an HBCU, how many black people do you know who aren't parts of HBCUs, who went to primarily white institution, who are boosters for an HBCU? How much of a difference would it make just by them being boosters to the nearest HBCU to where they live?
Big difference, brother. You are.
So that's an example of just regular people from across the country doing that work. Because the thing is, yeah, we want the celebrities and billionaires to get involved, but at the very core, in America, we move culture. We as black people move culture. If we decided to start, like I've seen people reminiscing about back in the early 90s, you used to see on TV on Martin and all these different shows, and they have all these HBCU sweaters on and all that type of stuff. I wish we had that back, as if people can't go and buy them now.
Right,
We could
right.
do it now. You see what I'm saying? So we have the ability to change that conversation. We could start making just everything from fashion to all of those types of things. We have the ability to do those types of things. But I think the thing is, we get lost sometimes in that conversation about what if these billionaires would just do it, then the rest of us would follow along. And it's like they are us. They
Hmm.
come from us. So we
I
got
get
to
what
do
you're
that
saying.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we can't rely on celebrities, man. You know, the community has to do it, and the celebrities come along. That's great, but we have to
hmm
do it
Yeah.
ourselves.
makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. And everybody's just got to buy in. And like you said, I think there's some fear that people don't want to quote lose what they have. But with great sacrifice comes good things. And I
Mhm.
like these gas. I was just telling somebody this is just on a whole nother level, but this is just an example of the power that we have. Um, even as just people, gas prices are sky high. If everybody stopped buying gas, of course we need it, but if we just stop buying gas, let's just suppose we just stop buying gas for 3 days, that's a big hit, and it may force them to not bring them down, but it may force some gas stations to bring the prices down. I think black people have the purchasing power. Like the purchasing power is just awesome. You know what I mean? It's just so powerful, and nobody wants to sacrifice. They'll do it for a day. Oh, you will boycott this for a day. But even with that NFL stuff, yeah, you stop watching 6 games, but
It's
it's
kind of hard.
it's
It's kind of
hard. It is.
it's kind of hard to boycott because I remember
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
watching this. I watched this again. Killer Mike did a documentary where he was going to just do everything black.
Mm-hmm.
I mean everything, grocery store, hotel, all that, and he had a hard time doing everything black economically to the point that he slept on the bench because it
Mm,
wasn't he where he was at didn't have a black owned hotel.
mm.
Uh, so I hear what you're saying, but if we like we said, we don't have our own, it's kind of hard to boycott, and that's what I'm saying. And it comes in regards to education, we need to have our own, so we ain't got to worry about Texas passing this law that's telling them people lies. No, you can pass that lie all you want to. Our kids gonna know the truth.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that I think we have to make sure that when we talk about even sacrifice or any type of work toward liberation, that we don't always talk about it in terms of the extremes, because I think that's the only way people can see it. And it's like, no, a lot of it is small, it's methodical, it's very focused and directed in one specific area. The Birmingham bus boycott, the bus boycotts that happened in Alabama, it was the bus boycott. It wasn't the grocery store boycott. It wasn't, they still patronized white business. They had things to do, but they used that as a wedge, something that would allow them more access in other ways. And I think that's the same thing that a lot of times we have to consider. It's not something that we have to be able to do in this big sweeping fashion. We just have to be able to be methodical about it, consistent about it, and direct it in a specific direction, and then kind of work it out. And in the midst of that, while we're doing that, we work on what our value system is. So since we know that they're not going to teach what history actually is, it's up to us. That doesn't mean we can hold a class in our house, but it does mean that we can make sure we create spaces where our children are learning these things on a regular basis in our homes. The way that we talk to them about history, the time that we take to make sure that they understand it, the time that we make to make sure that we understand it. Because just be honest, there's a lot of black folks don't know it themselves, and so they can't talk about what the kids don't know. They don't know it themselves. So we have to put that out there. What are churches doing to make sure that our
Mm.
history is known? So
Well,
if all of these, if
Right.
we're using the resources that we already do have to at least set that up. Because if that does nothing else, if a kid understands how this system works and he understands how white supremacy has affected the system and affects his life right now, by the time he gets to be a senior, HBCU is going to start to look really good to him. And you don't have to convince him to go to an HBCU. You've already made that type of change. But all of those things are methodical, and those things take years. And no matter what we're doing, it's going to take some years.
Right. Right.
Agreed.
And it's funny because my daughter, she attends Norfolk State, right?
Mm.
And at the end of the year, she thanked my wife, and she was like, "Thank you for making me go to a HBCU." She loves it, and it's just you could see, for me, HBCUs provided like a sense of self-worth for me. That was my experience, and for me coming out, like when I went to college. I had a GED. I had dropped out of school, wound up going to Shaw University. They took me in, and I owe them everything, man. I mean, I met my wife the second day at Shaw University. We've been together 28 years. I owe Shaw not just for my education, but just for having me getting my wife, which led to my children, which led to where I am today. That's I owe them everything, man. And I'm not saying I couldn't meet my significant other in some other school, whatever, but the fact that I went to a historically black college and I did what I had to do and I met my wife and I got a family, man. I can go I honestly believe I can go anywhere in the United States and have some family in one of those states. And that's what it does for me. You know what I mean? So when I think about elementary schools, it's just like, I wish we had our own, man. Like I really wish we had our own. I really do, man.
And I do too. So in the meantime, the question is, what do we do to create that environment?
That's the question.
In our children's world, while we're working toward that, what do we do to create that environment in our children's world now to make them feel that by virtue of them being born black, they feel special?
Right.
That even though when they may go to a job that will tell them that the way that their hair grows out of their head is somehow unprofessional, that they know that's not true because they are living in spaces that teach them something otherwise. What do we do to teach them that now?
That's right.
That's the question that we have to answer.
Yeah. I mean, my wife and I, we used to, ever since my daughters was young, we do them affirmations, By the time they got older, you couldn't tell them nothing. You still can't. It doesn't matter what they say to her. She's gonna think what she thinks, and that's a good thing because she's very positive about herself and who she is. Both of them are. So yeah, it's funny that you asked where do we start, man. But it's so many different things that we can do. But I don't know all of them, but I do know that there's some things that I do that makes my my daughter feel special. My wife does it too. So. I think that's where we got to start, man. We got to figure out what do we do to get these kids to say I'm black and I'm proud. I play James Brown all day, every day. I don't know, but we got, I don't know, man. That's something to talk about. That's another discussion, man. That's definitely another show that we got to do, man. You know what I mean?
I want to make sure that I'm going to send you. I'll send you something with a list of some black-owned schools around the country, and it'll have some links. You might want to share that with your listeners.
Absolutely,
well.
Definitely. I'll definitely do that.
that.
Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely do that, man. I appreciate it, man. So what we're gonna do, man? We're gonna do what I always do toward the end of the show, man. We're gonna get a final thought from both of you, and then we're gonna get up on out of here. So I'll start with you, Van, and then I'll still go with you, Marcus, and then we'll be out of here. Go ahead, Van. Final thoughts.
Final thought. Well, I'll say this. As much as we talk about valuing education, we can't just say that we value education when it comes to our children. If we want our children to be educated, we have to have them come from people who value education. So in some cases, that means if you're an adult and you have to go back to school, go back to school. If it means that you just need to read a little bit more so that you can keep up, do that. But whatever it is, place that value in education on you first, and then pass it down to your child rather than have them have an expectation of something that you're not willing to live out. Also, make sure to go to the scenarioradioshow.com.
Absolutely. That's right. That's right. I meant to tell y'all, just tell us a little bit about your show too. So just give us a quick little, we'll get Marcus's final word, and then Y'all both tell me about your podcast and your show, and then we'll get up out of here. Marcus?
Man, my final word is um, my our ancestors have done a lot since the inception of Brown versus the board in 1954. Um, if you're tired of your kids, you tired of seeing stories about black kids being picked on because of their hair. Are you tired of seeing uh, PSA meetings or meetings of your counterparts protesting about not having African American school lectures or electives or courses, so they won't learn the truth? Are you tired of just pure racism? Period. Then you probably want to have a all black school. But here's the thing: what are you going to do to get this accomplished? Everybody can talk about this, but like Van said, you must put in the work, and it has to be a mental, emotional sacrifice in order just to get this accomplished.
Right.
So I'm an advocate of doing this, but we can't rely on our celebrities. We can't rely on none of this. Just like the Black Panthers guided through the mud and got a lot of things accomplished for the black community, we must be able to do that, do the same thing. But the key thing, you must look in the mirror. What are you willing to sacrifice? That's my last word.
Amen. Amen. Marcus, tell us about your show, the name of your show, and how often does it come out?
Well, I've been taking a break for podcasting because a lot of stuff going on. But my podcast is called Rebuke, which is unique. What we talked about. In order to have these black schools, we must be able to reestablish black unity, knowledge, education, and economics. All those things play a factor in order to have an all black school. So I feel that the reason why I named that show Rebuke because we use the term rebuke in a negative term. Oh, you rebuke you Satan and all that, but I flipped it and made it positive. And instead of just talk about bad things about the black community, I talk about key issues within the black community and bring specialists on to that specialize on that topic, just like you done here to educate the black community, man. So I think I did about close to 60 episodes, ranging from mental health to sexual frustrations, man. So it's very diverse. And the thing is not a bunch of people on there blabbing their opinion. And because I don't care about opinion, I care about facts and data. So it's a great show. Check it out. It's on all platforms.
Yeah, make sure y'all check that out. Van, just tell us a little bit about the show, how we can get to it.
The Scenario Radio Show is wherever good podcasts are found. Again, you can go to scenarioradioshow.com, and that's kind of our hub for everything. So if you want to find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, wherever, you can go there as well. Our show is we call it Real Talk with a Playlist. So what we do is that because it's a podcast, but it's also a radio show that's syndicated in a handful of cities across the country. What we do is we integrate music into the whole thing. So no matter what the subject is, and we talk about a little bit of everything, no matter what the subject is, there's a corresponding playlist that goes along with it. So for instance, when we had the show, The Miseducation, what we did was we talked to educational professionals in a lot of different areas, and we asked them to share with us their favorite song from their senior year. And so that composed the entire playlist of stuff like that. So it's a variety of stuff, and it allows you to hear the richness of black music in all of its different aspects, and to hear a lot of different ideas from people all across the board as well. But yeah, we are actually on hiatus right now for the summer, but you can go and catch season 6. Got a lot of great episodes. We got my man Marcus on an episode as well called Recognized Game, where we're talking about sports and black identity and owning our own bodies. So really good show.
All right, y'all make sure y'all check it out. He got 6 seasons, so he's on a hiatus now, but by the time you catch up, he'll be back. All right.
Yeah, exactly. Go to binge now, and you'll be ready.
Binge now, so you'll be ready. All right. So, gentlemen, I'm going to get up out of here. When we get out of here, stay on. Don't go nowhere. Don't disconnect. We just gonna take him out here now, and we'll talk afterwards, man. So everybody else, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Make sure you check out the podcast next week. Make sure you check out everything that we got going on. All three of us, man. Just take a listen. You want to hear a good podcast? Pick from the three or listen to all of them, man. But we thank you for listening, and we're out of here. Appreciate y'all. Y'all stay on. We out. All right. Y'all take it easy now. We out of here.
Thank you for watching the Speak Now Hold Your Peace live broadcast. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and join us on the Speak Now Hold Your Peace Facebook group.